We've all dreamt of creating something, starting our own business, building a home, planting a garden, or writing a book. These kinds of projects truly excite us. Remember building forts as a kid? I believe that as humans, creation is in our DNA. And creation isn't always artistic. It can be craftsmanship, construction, even agriculture. All those activities humanity practiced for centuries to evolve. But now, we're so developed that we often don't feel the need to do these things. Worse, throughout our education, we're subtly taught that working with our hands isn't a desirable life goal. We learn that manual trades are reserved for a certain class of people, those who don't do well in school, who are less intelligent, or a bit troubled. Essentially, we're insidiously led to believe that being a baker, a plumber, or a bricklayer means you've somehow failed at life. To succeed, you're supposed to be an engineer, a lawyer, or a doctor. Or, for most, a corporate employee, performing obscure intellectual or administrative tasks to boost the profits of giant organizations. This is the definition of success we're taught. School, it seems, no longer molds individuals, it molds employees. When I was a kid under 12, if you asked me what I wanted to be, I was much more likely to say gardener than accountant or consultant. But once I hit 12, I started to pick up on those barely hidden messages adults sent about the hierarchy of acceptable professions. So, when asked what I wanted to do, I started to just say, I don't know. From that point, I felt condemned to follow the system and its predetermined path. 15 years later, I found myself unenthusiastically clicking away on impersonal software, working for a company I didn't care about, for a meager salary. That's success. To avoid dwelling on the huge gap between this facade of success and how we truly feel inside, we often escape into our dreams. One day, I'll launch my project. When I have enough money, I'll open my own business. Eventually, I'll create something beautiful. We all tell ourselves this. We constantly wait for the right moment, when we'll have the time, energy, and motivation, and everything will align perfectly. But that moment doesn't exist. Time passes and nothing changes. Whenever we try to make our project a bit more concrete, we realize the sheer scale of the task. It has to be perfect, right? Otherwise, what's the point? We sketch an idea, and very quickly, it overwhelms us. It's too far from what we envision. Ambition is hard to materialize. So we might as well wait, think a bit more, and prepare. But we never actually prepare. Instead, we prefer to keep thinking about it, living in the illusion that we're on the verge of starting something big. We're 2 steps away from creating something great because as long as we haven't started and we keep it in our heads, the project remains intact. It's perfect because it only exists in our imagination. Let's be honest, creating something is a challenge. It's not just aligning words or drawing lines. It's taking a piece of yourself and offering it to the world. Writing a text, composing music, drawing, singing, even sharing your opinion on a subject you care about, it's like taking a piece of your soul and extending it to others, hoping they find something beautiful in it. The moment our creation exists, it becomes a target. It's exposed to criticism, comparisons, and something far worse, indifference. And even if all of that is aimed at the creation itself, we can't truly separate it from our identity. If our project is criticized, we feel criticized. So often, we prefer to keep our ideas safe where no one can judge them. After all, as long as we haven't done anything, we can always tell ourselves we could have done it. We just lack something. It's much more comfortable because trying means risking failure. All of this, by the way, is an unconscious process at work. All these mental strategies we employ to avoid taking the leap feel like good excuses. It took me a long time to realize this, but a book helped me overcome it. Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. It's a collection of 10 letters Rilke wrote to a young, doubtful writer, wondering if he could become a poet. Rilke doesn't give technical advice or lecture him. He tries to show him what true creation really is. This small 50-page book acts like a spiritual guide, touching on themes like solitude, love, and melancholy, all to make us subtly reflect on creation and, more importantly, the creative impulse itself. What's powerful is that these letters are from 1903. They were written for a poet, yet they feel universal. It's almost as if they're speaking to us, revealing our inner world and our doubts about our life choices. Should I pursue my dream or abandon it? Should I take this well-paying job or forge my own path? Ultimately, Rilke always directs us back to ourselves. The answer to this creative impulse isn't something you can explain rationally. You feel it. No one can give you aid or counsel, no one. There is only one way. Enter into yourself. Search for the reason that bids you create. Look to see whether its roots stretch down into the deepest places of your heart. This is where we all go wrong. Creating isn't about seeking approval. It's not about doing something to please others, but because it's a necessity. When I read those letters, it truly moved me. I can't pinpoint exactly what it was. It wasn't a sudden revelation or a stroke of genius. It was more subtle. I've always had this feeling inside me, this urge to create something. And for me, that's always been writing. But like everyone else, I waited for that famous right moment. Thanks to Letters to a Young Poet, I realized it would never arrive, or rather, that it had already passed long ago. Suddenly, it felt urgent. I had to create. Naturally, YouTube became the obvious choice. I've been consuming content and thinking about making it for years. But starting on this platform isn't easy. There's so much to learn, and all the tutorial videos seem to give either terrible advice or contradict each other. So I stayed in my inertia, still waiting for that right moment. Then I discovered something that changed everything. A Discord server that brings together the largest French community of content creators. On the server, there are novices who just started their channels and YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. What's great is that it's a real space for exchange. Everyone discusses their projects and you can get feedback on your creations. It's truly a community of people with a common goal: to create. If there's one thing Rilke couldn't stand, it was criticism. Not constructive criticism that helps you grow. What he detested was our obsession with always judging a work by comparing it. It's a human behavior. We operate by comparison. But for Rilke, criticism isn't relevant. It doesn't look at a work for what it is. It judges it from the outside, within a framework it imposes, using criteria that aren't necessarily judicious. And today, everything has become like that. We consume an incredible amount of content, not really to experience it, but to evaluate it, to say whether it's good, whether it deserves a like, if it's better than this or worse than that. We've become critical spectators rather than sensitive spectators. In fact, it's even worse. We've become spectators, full stop. Perhaps you feel the same way I do. That strange feeling of no longer trusting the result Google gives you in response to a simple question. The unpleasant sensation of refreshing your YouTube page endlessly without knowing what to watch. The feeling that everything is fake and yet all looks the same. That everything is just disguised advertising and product placement. It's clear the internet has changed, and so have we. Before, we'd go online to clear our heads. The online space was a separate place. We'd go there to have fun, to learn, or just to chat with strangers. The internet was a momentary escape from physical reality. But now it's become a habit, and reality has become an escape from the internet. But like everyone else, it's not just how we consume all this digital content that's changed. It's the entire creative process. 700,000 is the number of hours of video published on YouTube every day. With a few clicks, anyone can share their content with the entire world. In fact, we've never created as much as we do today. So, you might think we're in a hyper-creative period of history, a time when humanity has overcome its conflicts and transcended its condition to allow every individual to exploit and share their talents. Yet, I feel like content creators have disappeared. In fact, there's mostly content imitators.
And it goes further. YouTubers copy concepts, narration styles, and titles to such an extent that when you scroll through YouTube, you often feel like all the content is identical. By the way, I told you there was a trick to the thumbnail game. Well, the idea for it actually came from one of those YouTubers. In his last 2 videos, which are excellent by the way, he offers this kind of interactive game that engages the viewer. I thought it was a good idea, so I decided to do the same. What I want you to understand is that imitation and even copying is an integral part of the creative process. Artists who immediately find a unique style and touch are extremely rare. Most of the time, we have to be inspired, imitate, and then gradually break free from our models to find our own way of creating. This is true for writing, music, painting, all forms of art really. But for content creation, there's another factor to consider: the algorithm. Yes, that pesky algorithm that assigns a score to your creation based on more or less obscure parameters, and then decides whether to promote it or let it die in a corner. And this algorithm is quite ruthless. I don't know if you remember a time when we used to go to the subscription tab to choose what we were going to watch on YouTube, but that's over. Subscriptions mean nothing anymore. Now, we refresh the homepage, trusting recommendations, and therefore, the algorithm. So of course, creators adapt. When one finds a concept that works, all the others imitate it to ride the trend. If they want to survive, they have to play the game, optimize formats, use the right words, the right colors, the right codes. And that's why we have this strange feeling that everything on YouTube looks alike. The videos we watch no longer leave as much of an impression as they used to. Everything is calculated and formatted to maximize our watch time, but not necessarily to bring us something meaningful. And you might think we have a choice, but in reality, we watch what the algorithm wants to show us. Yes, it pushes us towards ease. It crushes creativity under predefined models. But ultimately, it's also an opportunity. Because if everything looks the same, those who dare to do things differently have a golden opportunity. Today, YouTube is flooded with formatted content. Everyone follows the rules and applies the same strategies. So those who truly create something unique stand out even more, and viewers are waiting for it. You might think the algorithm kills creativity, but in reality, it highlights those who take risks even more. And if we learn to tame it a bit without completely giving into it, we can stand out. Because after all, it's better to create content that will deeply affect a dozen people than content that will entertain thousands without leaving a trace. And that's where we find Rilke again. Creating isn't about seeking approval. It's not about maximizing click-through rates or pleasing an algorithm. It's about responding to something burning within us. And that's what makes the difference. The creators who leave a mark, the ones we remember, are those who create for themselves. Rilke told us over a century ago, "A work of art is good if it has sprung from necessity." And the truth is, those who dare to create sincerely always end up finding their audience. So, are you ready to create?